You are welcome to this dialogue. I can start by introducing myself. Chris Bakuneta is my name. We welcome you, and there are some people who have come from far away, as far as Bulisa.
As a member of the board chairing publicity and membership, I want to make a call that Uganda Wildlife Society is one of the biggest, actually, the biggest member-based conservation group in the country. Started way back in 1993, but of course it had worked under the East African Wildlife Society for quite some time, and then in 93 we became independent. We depend on membership. So one of the calls that I'm making today is to ask everybody, because we have several categories of membership. We have individual, ordinary, just 20,000 per year. We have individual donor, those donors is 150,000. The corporate, those who have corporate organizations like my brother here, I'm sure he's a member, is 200,000. Then the corporate donor, 500,000, but mainly the students, 5,000 shillings. I want you to belong to this organization. The facilities that you get are quite many. Dialogues like these ones, you have access to our library, and many other. I'm sure the secretaries will be able to give you pamphlets that should assist you to know how to join. I saw registration forms there, so you can directly, I am sure everybody who is in this room, by the time you leave, you make sure you are a member of Uganda Wildlife Society, because that's how we generate our energy, that's how we generate our strength, and that's how we do these other things which we are doing. Now, secondly is the topics today are extremely very interesting. There is no question about it. While we take a lot of pride in conservation, education, and awareness, both in wildlife, wetlands, generally environmental issues, we also have certain aspects which you and me must, at the back of our mind, think about. When you look at Uganda's environment and natural resources, immediately you go to a course I did at my first degree, agriculture, and you know how involved it is. I will not go into details. Then you go to climate. Then you go to energy. When I was last in Makerere, we used to share classes with forest some courses. Now, they told me at that time that we in Uganda were depending, as far as energy was concerned, 95% of our energy was coming from biomass. And the picture, what is very interesting, has not changed quite a lot. It is still around 93, 94, and the petroleum contributes 2%, and about 3% is from hydro. So you can see the reason why we must dialogue, we must build a critical mass of Ugandans and non-Ugandans who live here, who understand the values and the challenges that we have to face if we have to manage sustainable development in this country, where environment is the critical factor. Fisheries as one of the resources, forests, I will not talk about them. The land, you know what is happening in the recent past. The land has almost lost all its nutrition, and the production rates are low, and here we don't use a lot of fertilizer, so we must do something. The recent oil and gas, I was chatting with my brother, and we were talking about the benefits, in the 5 basins in Uganda, the Hoima Basin, the Choga Basin, the Wamara Basin, the Kadama Moroto Basin, and the Albertine Graben now, where we have done some capacity. So that one is also one of the aspects that we must keep at the back of our mind. Then pollution, as the way you know it, tourism, I've heard some of you are studying tourism, water, wetlands, wildlife and biodiversity. All these are aspects which you and me must think about, and which you and me must use sustainably for the future of other many generations. How many of us will be here in the next 50 years? Some of you will be there, because I was born by independence. By independence I was 7 years and I'm still alive. So, but me and Dr. Bakuneta and a few others will not be here in the next 50 years. But you will be here, and you will be standing maybe here where I'm standing and talking to another generation. Yes, don't, I'm sorry, but for sure me, I will not be there. So we really need to get together and find a way in which we can sustainably use our resources. Finally, Uganda Wildlife Society works at 3 levels. There is the General Assembly, where the top organ, where all members, all of you who subscribe, sit, you elect your executive committee, you deliberate, you set guidelines, you check the budget, that's the topmost organ, the General Assembly. Then there is the lower one, which is the executive committee or the board, chaired by Dr. Kahirwa and deputized by Dr. Bakuneta. Dr. Kahirwa is not around. Of course, Isaac is a member who will close, and many others whom you will see. That one, we deal with policy. Then there is the third arm, which is the technical team, led by the executive secretary, Dr. Priscilla Nyando is around, but their team is around. So those are the 3 levels under which Uganda Wildlife Society operates. Let me not engage you, because I know the topics are extremely very interesting, and we need to discuss openly. But most importantly, at the back of your mind, keep these 9 or 10 things that I've said, and see how you in tourism, if you don't participate, how are you going to survive? In agriculture, in the private sector, the student, the father, the mother, and everybody. We must find a way of sustainably using our resources by conservation. Unless we do that, we are doomed. With those many remarks, thank you for listening to me, and I think I declare this dialogue open.
Uganda Wildlife Society believes very highly in students, and when we had our last annual general meeting, we decided to have a student on our executive committee. That is, the student is recommending that we make the closing remarks at the end. Okay? So you are here legally, and I want you to contribute effectively. Mr. Tom Rukundo, who is a student of this college, he did his Bachelor of Science in Forestry. So foresters, you should give him a clap. He's coming to tell you. He also has an MSc in Environmental Science and Natural Resources, and he has 20 years experience in the field. Okay? I met him in Budongo when he was doing his master's degree. So I know him personally also at that level.
In 1998, the government of Uganda initiated reform what was then Forestry Department. This was because they thought that they would improve the management, certainly, and conservation of forests, because it was being seen that much was not being done. And they thought that maybe if they need an autonomous body, things might move faster, they will be facilitated, they will be better trained and better facilitated. And also they had to divide it at that time into those reforms into 3 sectors: the forestry sector support department, national forest authority, district forest services. That is 3. Then in 2001, Government of Uganda pronounced National Forest Policy. There's National Forest Policy, Uganda Forest Policy. If some of those students maybe have not seen it, this is the one. And then there's also the National Forest Plan 2002. Unfortunately, I don't have the copy. Also, in 2003, there was enacted National Forest and Tree Planting Act, which is this one. So NFA was launched after the Act of 2003. National Forest Authority was launched, and its mandate is to manage Central Forest Reserve on a sustainable basis, also supply high-quality rated products and services to government, local communities, and the private sector. And strategic objectives is to improve the management of Central Forest Reserves, expand partnership, and supply good products and services. And those are some of the key achievements that have been the achievements by NFA since inception. The vision of the forestry sector is to have a sufficiently forested, ecological, stable, and economical prosperous Uganda. So that's also where National Forest Authority delivers its vision, which is to contribute to the national the forestry sector vision, to contribute to a sufficiently forested, ecological, stable, and economical prosperous Uganda. And of course, the mission is to manage Central Forest Reserves on a sustainable basis. I have already talked about that. So, this is the Forestry Institutional Framework. The Forestry Institutional Framework, the Constitution of Uganda, is a spring framework for sustainable forestry management, and it talks about protection of Uganda natural resources, including that means includes forests. We also have the National Forest Policy, which I have already talked about, especially statement number 7. Policy statement number 7. I'll have time and go through it. And also the National Forest Tree Planting Act. But of course, there are other laws which support forestry management. These also include the Wildlife Act. I'll talk about it more. The National Environment Management, the Local Government Act, the Land Act, all those support the management of forest. Forestry sector support services, which is responsible for formulating the policies, standards, legislation for forestry management. Then we have the National Forest Authority, which is responsible for management of Central Forest Reserves. And of course, we have the local governments through the district forest services that are mandated to manage local forest reserves and also to give advisory services to private and other farmers, private forest owners. So management of forest, that diagram shows how the category of forest, how the forest management is divided into Uganda. But about 64% of the forests in Uganda are outside protected areas, and these are outside protected areas, mostly on customer land and private land, of which about 18% is under Uganda Wildlife Authority, and also another almost 18% is under National Forest Authority. We have a small percent which is local forest reserves, which is under the district forest services. And there have also small portions which are jointly managed by Uganda Wildlife Authority and National Forest Authority, especially in areas like Udongo and the areas like Malamagambo, North Malamagambo, West Malamagambo. So as you can see, most of the forests actually are outside. Most of the forests are outside the protected area. So trends in the forest cover. Between 1990 and 2005, a total of about 1.3 million hectares of forest was lost. Of course, we shall look at some of the causes of why there is a loss of forest cover. That means that in Uganda it's approximately 890,000 hectares of forest lost per year on average, which is about the rate of deforestation about 2%, or about 1.8% per annum. So as you can, these diagrams show areas that were the private land, what was there between 1990 and what was there between 2005. Most of the forest cover action was lost outside protected areas. If you have time to see these diagrams, you'll be able to see that most of it actually was lost outside protected areas. So already I've talked about the percentages which are within the national parks, under UWA, and national forests, jointly managed, and also in the private. They were a big portion of about 64% right. So biodiversity in forests. Uganda tropical forests are rich in biodiversity, and we have about 1,559 species of trees and shrubs, about 1,000 species of birds, about 75 species of rodents, 4 species of primates, and 71 species of butterflies. 4 species of mammals, the chimpanzee, elephant, leopard, 1 species of birds, and 1 species of butterfly are listed as vulnerable. We have 4 species of birds which are classified as rare, and also have the great corpus monkey and Chivalodon tigris categorized as intermediate species. So Uganda is one of the countries which has highest biodiversity in our forests. In terms of geographical spread, we have well-stocked tropical high forests, mainly in the western part, especially around the Albertine region, where forests like Dongo, Goma, Chivale, Maramagambo, Passage Tomi, and the branch and parks of Gainga are located. And also in the eastern, I find around Mount Elgon. We also have low-stocked tropical high forests around the shores of Lake and islands around Lake Victoria. Woodlands in the northern, central, and western regions. Basically, the eastern part of the country is largely classified as forest poor. There isn't a lot of forests in that region. Biodiversity loss in forests. As by 2008, encroachment in protected areas. I'm talking this one, especially under national forests, which are central forest reserves. There were about 300,000 illegal settlements. If I'm talking about illegal settlements, these are, I don't mean people who go to cultivate and go out and live in it. These are actual settlements, people who are built there and staying there. Some of them use their temporary accommodation in central forest reserves. There have been some kind of, some have been in the last few years. Of course, some people have been going back, but some have been being evicted. So the number has a little bit changed, but it's not significant because of some other challenges we have, which are also called. And one of the causes of the biological loss, one of the drivers is agriculture expansion. Agriculture expansion into forested areas, which saw between 1990 and 2005, there was agriculture land expanded by 2% within the protected areas, mostly for small-scale agriculture. Of course, also big-scale agriculture is there, especially in areas like Ghana where there was palm and some other areas. Other causes are climate change, mainly due to severe droughts and floods. There has also been some poaching, especially animals, and some other, of course, some other plants. They come and hunt some species, which we have species. Of course, there has been human population increase, which has put pressure on biodiversity in the form of food and tradable products like timber, firewood, all those. Once those are cleared, of course, it affects the biodiversity. Biodiversity loss. Of course, another one is the poverty. There's limited capacity to develop alternatives to resource funds found within the biodiversity areas. people going to look for food, or instead of having an alternative, people going to get firewood. If they had maybe electricity, they would be having an alternative, but that would put less pressure on the forest. So by doing so, that means we are losing biodiversity forest cover. And of course, there have also been some security and conflicts, especially in areas where big conflicts like in the north. You find that where people settle in those camps, of course, there is a big forest to the north. But also some research was saying that by putting people in the camps, then they left the other place to recover. So they get the forest cover in those areas. That was part of the research also done. Also in invasive species. We have species like paper marabou. If you go to Mabira, that was introduced when was need for paper some years ago, but it has become invasive, and it has taken a very big chunk of the forest by pressing other species. I've already talked about encroachment, agricultural settlement, urban settlement, rural settlement, all those lead to biodiversity loss. Then unsustainable harvesting, because of poor planning and illegal activities which I've already talked about, like mining, and also poorly regulated access to genetic resources. People come in, they are coming to do research when they are actually trying to access some of the genetic resources. I hope I'm not moving very fast. Okay. Since I was supposed to talk about the challenges and the opportunities now, one of the challenges we have, and which was there before during the forest department, is inadequate government funding. If you look at the government budget for the country and you see what is given to the Ministry of Water and Environment, I don't know how to say, but it's a very small percentage. And even that, when it comes to the Ministry of Water and Environment, about 70% of the budget actually goes to water. So you find the environment, which has forests, wetlands, and wetlands. You find it has a very, very small budget. And for example, NFA, when it was being put in place, it was assumed that after 5 years it would be self-sustaining. But that means that if it has to be self-sustaining, we need to have a resource base which has to be big. But most of what was considered to be the resource base, which was based on plantations, most of them have been finished. So if we have to maintain ourselves NFA, then we have to move to converting natural forest, or at least putting them to other uses, like ecotourism, which are better uses. But that one will not sustain. That's why we need funding from government. Also, inadequate capacity to manage the forest, especially that will be maybe talked about by district people. But it's also cross-cutting. Within the FSSD, it is within the National Forest Authority. People are very thin on the ground. You find the forest of about 39,000 hectares. It has about 2 forest supervisors, 1 sector manager, maybe 2 motorcycles. So there are so many challenges there. The sector is currently not able to adequately mobilize because of that and enforce regulations in all forest areas. Most of the forests, actually most of the districts, not even as I talk about even in national forest sector, we see actually forests as a source of revenue. We tend to be the source of revenue. It's a source of revenue. Of course, there is another challenge of weak implementation of policy. The policy and laws are there. Of course, certainly they have gaps, but there is also weak implementation because of the inadequate, especially in funding. How to put this is lifted so that you can start operating. Same press. You have the record, then you have the institutional arrangement, which the ministry, we have the National Forest Authority, we have the FSD, we have the WA, all those are in place. The National Forest Policy, especially the policy statement number 7, which talks about about forestry conservation, and part C of the National Forestry and Replanting Act, which also talks about conservation of forests. Yeah, that is an opportunity because they are there already in place. So, of course, they have some gaps, but they are there. We have the National Development Plan, which categorizes forests as primary growth sector, with growth for investment from the national budget, but the second already it's the small one. The budget is small. Still, most of the threats to Ghana biodiversity are known. Although they require further assessment, that's why there is not need for research and other things. We have national and international people. Donors, our development partners are willing. If we improve on our governance issues, they are ready to provide some value for the sector. There is existence of collaborative management mechanism. In forestry, we have what we call collaborative forest management. That's where government comes into agreement with communities around the forest on how to manage that part of the forest reserve and achieve compliance. We need strong enforcement of policy and legal framework for biodiversity management. We need information and data. More information and data on biodiversity resources in Uganda. That's why I've said we need more research. And you students are encouraged, there are more opportunities for carrying out research in this forest. So I encourage you to do some research. More investment is also needed in non-consumptive areas, uses of biodiversity resources, especially agriculture. I always talked about that even in our resource base is engineering. So if we have to have resource base, we need to invest in the areas of non-consumptive use of biodiversity, like ecotourism and culture tourism. We need to demarcate biodiversity conservation zones and manage them in accordance with the Forest Nature Conservation Master Plan. I don't know how most of the students know about that Conservation Master Plan, but it's a great paper of document for managing conserving biodiversity in Uganda. So you need to access it and see what it talks about. We need also to identify and improve management of biodiversity corridors so that also the special animals are able to move. We also need to prioritize conservation when initiatives about that.
He has actually outlined all the main challenges we have. Uganda Wildlife Authority. We shall have reserve your questions in the last session. Uganda Wildlife Authority. John Makombo, you have come and tell us more about what is happening down there. You are welcome.
Uganda Wildlife Authority came into existence in 1996, and that was after a merger between Game Department and the National Parks, where I started my work. So after that, and that was done because the Game Department and the National Parks were doing almost the same role. So government felt that it would be better to manage these two institutions in the same, under the same umbrella. Currently, we have 10 national parks, and if you look at the map, there are those red points, those are national parks. And then we have 12 wildlife reserves. We also manage wildlife outside protected areas, that's in sanctuaries and community wildlife areas. And actually, the sanctuaries are about 13. So in total, we manage 11% of Uganda's land surface. So if you put Uganda together, we are actually a big organization. I don't know whether there's any other organization that manage Uganda's soil to that extent. So some of our estates are general World Heritage Sites, Ramsars, we have man and biosphère reserves, and so we manage international and national areas of conservation bodies. We have got 5 ecological zones that meet. That's why we have a big potential for conservation. We have forests, we have savannas, we have water, we have wetlands. And so when you combine all those, they form a good combination that enhances conservation. We have got 53% of the world's mountain gorilla. Actually, for some of you who are invested in mountain gorillas, we recently had a census and we have got a raise from 340 to 400. So that's where we are. I think that's good news. We also have over 100 bird species, and out of our bird species, 10% are actually of global diversity in waters, and 50% for Africa. And then of the 1,500 bird species in East Africa, we are actually 72% of that. We host over 7% of global mammal species, and that's about 39% within the African continent. And then we have 19 and 14 of amphibians and reptiles. So why are we proud that we are always keeping this? Why? Why is it important to us? Should we just let it go to people who need the land, who want to farm, so that we can live it? Why? And one of the reasons is that identity that we associate ourselves with wildlife. Many of you out there, you have clans. Some Baganda, you have Bagandas here. Eh? We have Baganda. Yes, the Bakunettas. Which clan are you? Which one? He's very shy to say it. I don't know why. Eh? Who can say his clan? Eh? You are not Muganda. Yes. The Mangi, the Colobus Mangi. Why? It's because we are actually part of this wildlife and we associate ourselves with them. So we need actually to preserve them in order for our children to actually see them in the future. If you look at our coat of arms, it has the crane, it has the cock, so which means actually even at the national level, we associate ourselves with wildlife. Most of these areas that we conserve are sources of clean water, very nice water. Go to the Rwenzoris. The Rwenzoris supply almost 6 million of the population, and that is only within the Rwenzori region. But then add on those people that are within Sudan and Egypt. So they are very important areas for water, very important areas that supply water for fisheries, especially if you look at Mavira. Mavira contributes to Lake Victoria. Then we have Rwenzori Bwindi contributing to Edward and George. So those rivers that flow into the lakes are what maintains the ecosystems down there. Then definitely we have people that depend on the protected areas for water. And if you go to Kisoro, is there any person from Kisoro here? Yes. These people, they even go up to the Mugahinga National Park to go and harvest water. So water is not just a simple resource that we should ignore. Then education, and in education we have a number of institutions. We have Makerere branch and Mbarara branch in our protected areas. And so these provide opportunities for research and education. Then we have protection against disasters such as this. This is one of the Bududa landslides. So this area, this landscape was vegetated, and when it was deforested, then the soils remain loose, and eventually the water carried all the soil, and you can see those are disasters that have happened. Those are stories that I cannot repeat because you have already heard about them several times. Climate modification. People who come from around forests, lakes, I think you believe me that the climate there, the local climate, the microclimate there is different from what you get outside elsewhere where there are no forests. So these forests that we conserve, these national parks that we keep are a carbon sink. They actually absorb all that carbon that we generate in industries, and most especially in developed countries, where most of the industries have been, I mean most of the forests have been cleared, and there is a lot of generation of carbon into the atmosphere. So we act, these protected areas act as a carbon absorbent. Then the control of soil erosion, already we have seen the Bududa area. So if there were forests, we wouldn't be seeing such situations. Then the resource reservoirs, like such as we have medicines. Some of the people get food from there, especially people who come from around the Windy will believe me that the Batwa use the wild yam as food from there. Then we have Msongora here. Basongoras also use Queen Elizabeth for pasture, and also the Batuku, the Karamajongs. So these are reservoirs for resources when they are not there in terms of scarce. Then we have the historical attachments. Some of these areas we have been getting actually one Muganda traveling all the way from here to Madison to go and worship his ancestral spirits. They have a cultural site there, so they keep moving every year. So these are what we attach ourselves to. These are very important sites. If you look at archaeological evidences, that's where you find them. In Pianope in Karamoja, also in Queen Elizabeth, you get such evidences of man's history. So very important for us to keep. National parks and wildlife reserve contribute 160 million US dollars. And so you can calculate how much that is to Uganda's economy. The other opportunities in terms of community is the revenue that we share with them. Every 20% of gate collection is passed over to the community neighboring the parks. And that money is used for community development projects. And so far, from the time we started, this is what we have disbursed to the communities, 5 billion. So you can imagine 5 billion in the communities. If you are given 5 billion, what would you have done with it? It's a big development, and so that's a big contribution that we give to the community. This is another contribution, an opportunity to the communities, which we did. This is one of the ecologies in Windy. We built for them out of the collaboration between the AWF and ourselves. We contributed money and put up a lodge, which is helping the communities to develop an opportunity for them to get out of poverty. Currently, I'm happy to report that probably in 4 years, we have generated about 700 million from this lodge, which has gone to the community again. That excludes the money that they get from tourists as porters and the sale of crops. So just from this lodge, that's what it is. If you go around the Windy, you realize that the communities are no longer poor. You cannot count them as part of those people who are poor in Uganda. They are actually very rich people. If you go to Kasese now, most especially Ivanda, that valley, people are now very rich. It is very hard to get a grass-thatched house. Those are opportunities which people are getting out of conservation of biodiversity. Then we have built schools, we have opened roads, we have also what we call a wildlife use rights arrangement. Under there, wildlife that is outside, actually about 50% of our wildlife is not in the parks and wildlife reserves. It's outside there. So around Lake Mburo, we introduced sport hunting. And sport hunting, by that time, our colleagues, the Banyankole, were really looking at those animals are useless. They were killing them because they were destroying their farms. So we introduced what we call sport hunting, which is part of Class A under the law. And each animal that's killed on someone's farm would be paid. So we get money going to the landowner, money going to the community association, and then money going to us. Then there's money that goes to the person who conducts the exhibition, I mean the expeditions So with that, we have generated quite an amount. That's what so far we have got out of that, and that's income that goes to government. That is up to 2007. And then in terms of community benefits, this one is in terms of dollars. You can see we have the associations. Associations have got 175,000 US dollars. So these are just community groups. Yeah? Community groups. And you can count how much that money, I mean you can compute. Out of that, we only got 48,000. And then we go to the community protected area institution. This is the link between the protected area and the communities. It's just an institution which we formed. We also gave them that 13,000 to make them operate and monitor. Then we also gave local government and then the landowners. So you can see the landowners already in the big business. And for instance, a buffalo is $600. Now, if you compare that buffalo with your cow, which is at home, a bull, if you get the biggest bull, I think you will just sell it at 800,000. Okay, 800,000 is about $300. But then the buffalo is twice as much. So which means if you keep buffaloes on your farms, then you will get more than keeping cows on your farm. And indeed, if you go around Lake Mburo, people realized the importance and they stopped, they minimized hunting, and now the numbers of wildlife have actually increased. Currently, people around there are fighting for those blocks. They are fighting for wildlife. They want now to own it. So you can imagine from that state of pests to a state of resource. So graphically, that's the money that goes to the communities, that blue. Then we have the one that goes to us because we have to monitor, we have to manage. And then we have that goes to the local government and CPI and the landowners. Also, the other opportunities are private sector. Since we started, we have had a number of companies coming up. We now have 30 possession agreements, including the lodges for Marasa. We now have, out of that, 18 accommodation. We have 7 as recreation boats, which are being operated on the water. Then we have the mountaineering, and then the collaborative management. Under collaborative management, we give protected areas to people and companies, and they manage them on our behalf. Definitely, we are not yet there in terms of money, even when I show you all this. Just imagine 11% of the whole country. How much money do we need? How much is the budget of Uganda? An economist yeah? Trillions. But out of the trillions, for us, we operate in around the 40 billion. So divide that. Can we really, if you get 40 billion, will you come to those trillions? It's not possible. So really, we still have to sustain ourselves, and we are determined. We are going to identify more tourism products, and we want to bring more tourists into Uganda, so that even you people who are here should be able to get employment. There are people who have finished tourism here, who have finished environment, and they are still working. They are still unemployed. But you need that employment, and we are going to create it so that you can come and join us. So, pressure for land. You know, most of these, you know, my colleague talked about these forests being encroached. But you know me, I work with a carrot and a what? And a stick. Because me, I carry a gun. For him, he doesn't do what? He doesn't carry a gun. So for him, when they get him into the forest, they just cut him into pieces. Me, by the time they cut me, I'll have also shot how many? But that's not my policy of shooting. I only shoot when I know that someone has actually confronted me a lot. If I a lot of population pressure, incidentally, some of the areas which are highly populated, like Rwenzori and the Mugahinga and around Windi. Those people are very cooperative. We have been having good community conservation programs which have kept those areas intact. But we still have problems in Elgon. These people who come from Kapchora, they are very dangerous. Those ones. Don't never trust them. When I'm just around here. But this, that man, he can even kill you with a panga. And I will show you what happened to us. This is part of Elgon. This is actually part of the park. And you can see how people have been brought in. They have settled everywhere. The boundary is supposed to be in the valley down there. Okay, that's where the boundary is. But you can see all that is already encroached. And the impacts out of that, look at that valley. Originally, that valley used to have a very big waterfall. Okay, but now it's no more. It has disappeared. If you look at this, this is a river which is already moving, and that's your area, man. So very soon, if you say you don't have water, that's the reason. Just because you have heavily encroached the park. The other one is poaching. Poaching is a big threat to wildlife survival. What you are seeing here is the poaching for trophies. People are looking for ivory. And this is now our biggest problem currently. That happened because the CITES, which is the Convention in International Trade of Endangered Species, okay? That convention opened up to trade in elephants, especially the one for South Africa, Namibia, Botswana, and Zimbabwe. Those people have protected their elephants such an extent that elephants are now destroying even the environment. So in order for them to protect, conserve, to protect the environment, they have actually a kind of culled, cropping some of the elephants. And when they did that, they piled a number of tons of ivory. And because of that, they needed to make money. They have spent money to conserve their elephants. So CITES allowed them one off. And that created a big problem to the rest of us. Because now we started getting Chinese coming here, passing through people, and they go to the park and kill elephants. Even the few elephants which we have are now under threat. We have got, actually that man is from Kapchora, the one with the saw. So Kapchora, people in Kapchora like harvesting timber. You like it a lot. And this starts at that age. Even if you educate a child, this child will grow up a poacher. So we have a big challenge in overcoming that. This is one of our rangers who was cut by communities. We have a community hostility that's around Mount Elgon. And then that lion was poisoned by the Basongora. When the lion ate up their cows, so they started also poisoning. Then we have challenges of disease. We recently had the anthrax in hippos in Queen Elizabeth. So that one was also overcome. We have now currently oil challenges. Oil companies are opening up very virgin areas, landscapes that are really virgin, and we are now getting, degraded habitats of wildlife, and most especially in the Kaboya and the Murchison Falls. These are some of the impacts. When they heat oil down in the ground, they usually test it. The waste oil that they get, they burn it. So as they burn, we get that kind of pollution in the protected area. And so we tried to minimize that by asking them never to burn. So we have got also, like if you look at that photograph on the right, that's what they call an oil pad. When they are drilling, they actually open an area with a lot of, place there a number of equipment. So from the air, you really see it as a big city that's in a protected area. And these are just the impacts that we get. Now, poaching due to oil. When oil started in Murchison, we started also getting a rising trend in poaching levels. And one of the challenges also are the bad infrastructure. in terms of roads. We are in very remote areas. People who come from around Kidepo, do you have any Karamajon here? No? Anyone from Kitgum? No? So these are some of the roads that you'll find around Kidepo, and they don't facilitate tourism development. Then the lack of buffer zones. You can see that line, the forested area is windy. From the forest, you are into the garden. Now, how are you going to stop an animal from eating people's crops? It's very impossible. Then you have problem animals like these elephants. Even when we try to intervene, they still keep covering the trenches. And then you have problem animals like pythons, most especially around this Uganda. There are so many. We have policy loopholes. Like I would say, if you poach an elephant, currently the law says you should not be charged more than 6 million Uganda shillings. But a kilo of ivory is just the 50,000 US dollars. So 50,000, and the ivory, possibly one elephant can provide about over 50 kilograms of ivory. So multiply that by 50,000, and so even if you charge him 6 million, the guy just looks at it and says, that's it, just. Then the communities usually ban protected areas, and the animals run to the outside, and they get poached outside there.
Yeah, give him another big clap.
My presentation, I will briefly look at introduction. We'll talk about introduce the topic, look at forested, the broad concept, biodiversity, and of course, poverty reduction issues. Poverty, as you mentioned in one of the slides, it was closing, very much related to what? To enforcement, poaching, and boozing. If you deny these poor people resources, of course, they will always get their happiness. I will look at the ecosystem services provided by the forests. Of course, some current trends that we see. Where are we going as far as sustainable forest management is concerned? And then I will highlight some few good practices that we may borrow from other people who have tried that are working on. Now, a lot has been said from the first presentation about forestry. He has talked so much about wildlife, which is the biggest component of biodiversity with their aesthetic values. He also mentioned quite a lot of things related to benefit sharing among the poor around the park. So he has made my work quite easy. So I would say it has been estimated that nearly 60 million. We have talked about the Bangladesh goods and ecosystem services, a range of basic needs, including food, as mentioned quite a number, including shelter. The Batwas, some of them remember at one point in time, my brother Boris, in the forest department, they brought them out. They were being considered as what? The forest pest, because they were really becoming dangerous on bamboo around. They brought them out, but unfortunately, they built them a house which is about 1 meter or 1.5. When the rain comes, these guys decided to take back the rain back for iron sheet. So these guys went back, majority of them, they are back in the forest, and therefore forest is really fundamental as far as the shade is concerned. Clothing, eating requirement, most of us in the country can say about 90% of us still use what? They eat coming from what? From firewood or charcoal, in other way. The most lucky one, perhaps 10% or less, are using other forms of energy to meet their eating requirement and of course cooking food and other. Of course, as I say, my presentation will try to highlight some of the basic tools which can serve poverty reduction and biodiversity conservation objectives. That at the end of this, I see the last presentations, we are trying to come up with what works and what doesn't work, and therefore we can maybe move on from that direction. Conserving forest biodiversity, of course, as one said, even put in the Bible, it's a prerequisite. It's our duty. It's our moral duty that we need to have these things for our benefit today, and of course for the next generations. Just going to highlight here in this slide some of the few biodiversity goods and services, which is, of course, two previous presentations have mentioned quite many, to look at the provision of services, things like the food, the fiber, the fuel, in whatever form, firewood, charcoal, biscuit, and all those things. Some of these systems that we encounter with. We have genetic resources. There are some, there are quite many villages around here, but we believe that forest is the bank, the wilderness is the bank. Some of these genetic resources may be useful for us in the future to do whatever kind to get a better product and better people. We have a lot of biochemical products that we get from these forest resources. Some of them go typically the rural countryside where it was grown and raised. Most of our ladies there, actually most of them, if they're using lipsticks, they just go to the forest. There's quite a lot of colorants that they use, but the modern people in town, perhaps they don't know those. So, but there are a lot of biochemical products that you can get from these forests that be used for mineral purposes, fresh water. Somebody told us that the bad thing with us Uganda that we don't have culture for water. We leave these guys come out and enjoy. But if you go to these countries, the Budongo, the Madeira, the Guinea there, you might not actually want to come back and drink the water from your bar or that kind of thing. But even if you are bathing in this water, you really feel relaxed after you have been in a massage room. I know many of you have been in massage. I fear going to those places because I don't want to be massaged by a man. At the same time, when a woman massages me, normally put me in the other extreme. And then we have cultural services that normally the issues, they know most of their rituals around here. The sacred, we have so many sacred forests in Uganda here, and people who still actually worship some trees, some objects within this, So all these we get knowledge systems, educational system transfer, educational inspirations, recreational and staking value. As already mentioned with the good case examples. When you look at regulatory services, some of them which are not normally quantified. Again, my brother tried to explain much about that. Some of these are hidden, that they rarely come into economic when you are quantifying the value of the existing. And therefore, our politicians normally take biased vision because some of these things are never quantified. These are indirect services, invasion, agricultural pollination, all these kind of things, this regulation, all that. We can do indirect services that are provided by these ecosystems. We have supporting services, primary production, believe that forest make rain, and quite many things, wind break and all those things. Provision of habitat for these wild bios, nutrient recycling, soil formation, of course. Production, hopefully we take normally these, and yet to these plants, for them it's a byproduct. If you have been around the hospital, you'll find that most hospitals are always green, isn't it? They are always green. So much plants are planted around because trees normally provide what? The oxygen, which we take in, and the carbon dioxide. That will breathe out if they have food instead. Water recycling, all these are some of the services that if we are not very careful, we manage these resources, especially forest. Most of our livelihood requirements certainly will diminish over time. I mentioned in the introduction that in my layout that I will talk about some current trends, especially related to forest biodiversity, because most of our day-to-day livelihood requirements protect around this biodiversity that we are blessed with. So forest biodiversity is being, of course, lost at an alarming rate. Again, my colleagues have mentioned, although in some places we are very happy as reported in Uganda that the picture will begin to see light at the end of the tunnel. That now we are having so much rise in the number of the gorillas, which I think to us is great. Last time I managed to visit this Zewa Ranch. Back before the Zewa Ranch was there, you would not see any antelope there. But you go now there, it is unbelievable. Because of the profession now, so many animals from out there have come in. You can't believe this grass cutter because it's very delicious. We used to, when we go there, do a little illegal. I'm not reporting myself, but now you go, you can even, as you move, you will see them moving up and down, and that always comes because of protection. Of course, there are key publications like the Millennium Ecosystem Assessment. We have so many copies here in the library. We have the red list of threatened species to go to the former minor. Now the Department of Environmental Management, we have all these lists. This indicates a large and increasing number of forest systems, populations, species are threatened globally, or being lost due to loss of vegetation or forest habitat. When you destroy a forest, then you are going to destroy a hell of many living things, that some of them not even yet known to us. You remember when the debate came about Mabila being given away, some people lost their life, some people took their hunger to the Asian communities because they believed they were pushing from underground, and some deaths had actually been in Kampala here, and some people were reportedly they took off from the bus to the nearest point, Kisumu, where much of their relatives are. So all these are coming because of the concern, that if you convert this to another land uses, some of those indirect benefits that we looked at, it will also be what? Foregone what? Opportunity. Okay? Of course, forested wetland, again, this which has been much abused in our country. Forested wetland normally represent a particular vulnerable forest type. Forest wetlands are highly biodiversity rich. Samo Bay, if you have been blessed and you have gone there, you will attest to this. Of course, in Kampala around here, because of the high population, some of my colleagues mentioned population pressure, what is the fact? Most of our wetlands are now what? NEMA is trying their best. I don't know whether we have this case here, but the NEMA don't like them. I've already had the workshop to talk about this. Because they give, they are supposed to be legal authority, to do the environmental impact assessment allowed. But somehow, as we say, for a lack of political will or pressure of making the pocket bulky, some people still go underground. And they're untouchable. You find them what? Building in petrol stations. Some of these ones by diversity ritual. And this is quite a challenge as a country as we move forward and as we are trying to conserve some of these biodiversity, especially for the rural poor. Because I can afford to have 2 meals a day, 3 meals a day, even 4 meals a day per one. But some of our brothers and sisters, they may not afford even to have what? 2 meals a day. So, and if you protect this, then it's what? We are looking the issue of equitability and equality. Now, it has been said that about 1.6 more than 1.6 billion people, again, depend with varying degrees on forests for their livelihoods. This includes the firewood, medicinal plants. Actually, this has become a very big industry in the country. Forest foods, to the extent that for these, there are people who have taken opportunity because they know if you come up with collect produce, go to mineral water, you pack whatever kind of leaves and you go with it concoction. People say political they will buy a lot. So a lot of these people have entered into and yet you realize that about only 10% of us, the population, can actually what? Access the medical what? Western style kind of medicines. And the rest actually depend on what? Tradition. But of course there are a lot of books in the market which is apparently going to destroy, and we pray our politicians perhaps to come up with a policy to regulate what? This use of medicinal plant products. It's one of the biggest industries as far as the rural life is concerned. That when we manage the resources very sustainably, people can benefit from. So the consumption of the main timber products, things like the roundwood, the softwood, pulp, is also expected to increase over 30 years. A lot of documents which I will show you at the end are reviewed and they attest to this. In fact, the current trend even seen from Uganda, that even trees that used to be meant for other alternative end-use products like the fene. My name, I'm told, is called Yakobo or fene. When I didn't like it at first when I was digging deep into that fene, Yakobo, fene, deep around Masaka. So even fene which used to be fruit, meant for fruit, but now people are using them for what? For making chairs, making what? That was not the end-use purpose meant for. But because of this demand that we cannot actually meet. And in the next 30 years, if we don't plant more trees, we don't conserve the forests we have in whatever good practice I'm going to talk, then we are going to be in crisis. So if you have not planted even a single tree, start today or start what? Tomorrow. If you have been safe, one of them is managing biodiversity in production what? Forest. We can do this. And I know in some cases, there are real criteria that can be followed. The ITO and IUCN, of course, have developed this guideline for conservation, so this biodiversity for timber forest. Although we are even now trying plantation, biodiversity management and plantations. The guidelines, one of them says we must observe national laws if we are to manage biodiversity more. That if we bring them out, then we should not actually go left and right until then. We should observe national laws, plans and practices for local communities in forest management activities. Of course, support the implementation of the national biodiversity related agreement. We mentioned the CITES, quite many of them. The other one that we must establish a forest management plan, which I've seen quite a number with our brothers in NFA, in which the biodiversity conservation objectives are clearly worked. Then 5 of each of the forest management forest and the management plan. That should be, so when my brothers are planning this, we must plan things about what? Bio, the resources that are endowed there, not about any timber. In preparations of harvesting plans, we need to pay particular attention to the local occurrence of species, habitats of special conservation concerns, and species that perform biodiversity functions. If we are doing that, already we talked about the wildlife heritage and all those sites, the Ramsey, but even in the long or even where we have given people concession to pick some people, they need to take care of some of these concerns these days. We need to plan the allocation of tropical forest production areas at a landscape scale and plan harvesting blocks in ways that do not disturb the continuity of what? The mature forest. We're picking them. Because all these challenges are now coming in. We need to raise public and political awareness. A lot has been said, but some people don't even have ears to hear, especially the politicians. Because these are the guys who today they will say, we support and we shall, and then tomorrow they are telling those are my voters. They can be there for a while. So their commands are normally confusing and makes the implementers quite a big challenge. We need to coordinate actions of forest owners, users, and managers across landscape. So that again calls that NFA must work with the WOA, must work with the must work with other stakeholders so that we really realize what the benefit and of course ensure the continuity of some of these species. We need to encourage the establishment of representative natural forests within the plantation estates. Apparently the NFA, one of their mandates is to allow the communities and private sector to come in and work, establish these bodies of plantations. So we need a direction which is quite National Tree Planting Act encourages us to do that. And then one of the other good practices that perhaps can also help us manage biodiversity within human communities is practically what we call agroforestry. It has been defined by some work which I did some past in 2008, that it's a land use system in which woody perennials, things like tree, shrub, palm, bamboos, normally are planted or used in the same land management unit, crop together, animals raise and eat, in either spatial arrangement or at what? One point in time. So these, if you practice it, we can also, there are a lot of case studies talking about what agroforestry can do in Uganda here, we have in Tanzania. So trees can provide a range of benefits in agricultural systems, landscape have higher biodiversity per unit than agricultural landscape. Any landscape that is endowed with agroforestry will have more biodiversity compared to what? Agriculture. Again, agroforestry contributes to human well-being by providing additional income, increasing food security through higher diversity of crops, and all that have been mentioned. So I'm also glad that in National Forest Authority, this is one of the things which they are also promoting. And then when we look at forest landscape restorations, a lot has been done. I think my brother, when he left Minor, he joined the Prime Waste, which they are trying to do a lot of landscape restorations. Together, the Yield, they have done some good case studies in Mapira. And we can do this if we restore some of this degraded land. We can also conserve this biodiversity. It's very important. And communications, we should not look at what? Top down. It should be across, down diagonal. Sometimes the lack of communication that actually messes up. I've seen when I'm driving, I always like, I don't know whether I'm promoting a shop. I like always buying game meat around the Kafu. And when I go there with my car, nobody will walk. They will tell, we don't have a wild meat market yet. But when I park my car and just come loudly whistling, they take me over. And I always engage. And there you find only women, no men, in one. So one of them told me that if you have men, women here, when these low people come, they always arrest what? Men. But women are always forgiven. So information is very important. I want to rest my case here and say thank you for listening.
The wetlands in Uganda are being filled with our petrol stations. You get it? So our policy is the best. Other countries want to come and borrow a leaf. But what is happening to our wetlands? So that is one of the areas that we need to talk about. I want to invite our next speaker.
And it has an area of around 3,200 square kilometers, of which this is comprised of open water and land. So the area is surrounded mainly by Lake Albert in the west, from floating Albert Nile, Kungu Game Reserve, Children Falls National Park, part of it, and then the Bongo Forest at Masenge Central Forest Reserve. So as you can see, this area lies amidst protected areas, so it is within the area ecosystem. The number of rivers and streams that ramify in this district. I've already talked about River Nile in the north, and those other ones you can see. The district also shares one of the Ramsar sites called the Machishon Falls Nile Delta Ramsar site, and shares it with the Amuru and the Masindi district. The economic activities in this area include agriculture, which takes the biggest percentage, fishing, because of that lake, livestock, then trading, employment income, and other industries. The area that is under forestry, or that is supposed to be under forestry, is around the 120 square kilometers, and that is Bongo and Maseke Central Forest Reserve. However, this area is diminishing at a very high rate due to rampant encroachment, overgrazing, and high dependence on firewood and charcoal as the major source of energy, contributing around 98%. The district also boasts of recent oil discoveries, where companies such as Tullow Oil have discovered over 30 prolific oil wells. The district lies in two oil exploration blocks. And that is one block that is licensed by Tullow Oil, another block is licensed by Total. So those are some of the wells under each company. Oil companies are making an effort to try and comply with environmental law, but there are still a number of challenges that in turn affect forestry conservation. So these are some of the challenges that I would like us to discuss with you. One of the biggest challenges that is recent and has come as a result of the oil activities is the threat of environmental degradation resulting from oil and gas emission. And this one is likely to cause negative impacts on the environment and forestry conservation. Some of these threats include habitat conversion, degradation, fragmentation, air pollution from machinery used in the oil activities, dust raised from truck and access roads, soil compaction due to these heavy machines or parts, noise, light pollution, deforestation. We're talking about forestation here because there's a likelihood of having some oil wells within the central forest reserves. soil erosion and sedimentation of waterways, contamination due to improper waste disposal of oil spills. Those are some of the challenges that are likely to result from the oil activity. That's what we are anticipating. We are already feeling some of them. The other challenge we have with forest conservation in this region is our land tenure system. All along, people in this region have been sharing land communally, what we call communal land ownership, which is a form of kind of a disguised form of customary ownership. So you find that very few individuals here own land on an individual basis. And to make matters worse, the government has put a ban on titling of land within this Bunyoro region. So people can't title up their land within the shortest time in the near future. So this one makes the issue of land very complex. The other problem that we have is the porous border between Uganda and the Democratic Republic of Congo. As I told you, the western side of the district border is Lake Albert, which we share with the DRC. So this one has kind of attracted illegal migrants to come seeking for jobs. Some of them seek for jobs in the oil industry. Others are fishermen, and they end up settling around the lake shores. And of course, around the lake shores, this is where we get the wetlands, where we had some trees, so there's been a problem of degradation. Having had all those challenges before you, still there's hope. And these are the opportunities that we still exploit for us to revitalize our forest resources. The legal instruments are very rich. That's a number of them there. How the capacity to implement all this, then I think we'll be able to conserve our forestry. Then the mandate of local governments to formulate environmental ordinances and bylaws. This one still adds to the first point of the legal instruments. Then we have communities, of course, around these central forest reserves, and this one will provide an opportunity for coming up with collaborative forest management for these reserves. For the degraded areas within this region, degradation has mostly taken place. Yes, there's degradation on private land, but there's also more degradation within the PAs. So the fact that the central forest reserves made part of the permanent forest systems means that this land is still there for being developed into forest. So that is another thing that we can have other bottlenecks. Realize that this part of the country is not connected to the national grid, to the hydroelectric power, and that one has mounted more pressure on forests for fuel wood as the only source of energy in this area. So the opportunity of extending power to this area at least will help to reduce this pressure. In conclusion, what I can say is that forest conservation in this oil and the gas-rich part of this country still remains a challenge and requires the national attention. The existing ecological values and the general environment is going to be maintained or improved. Considering these economic activities like the oil and the gas exploration, the pastoralism, is likely to be advanced degradation impacts on this fragile ecosystem of Albert and environment. Therefore, special attention should be given to the Albert and Rift, because of its high biodiversity, the ecological values, agricultural productivity, tourism potential, and this calls for a holistic intervention by both government and other conservation agencies and the other stakeholders like that. So I think I've come to the end of my presentation.
Philip? Moses. Please give him another clap.
Yeah.
However, having heard from these people, you must be realizing there is a problem. Okay? He's saying there is lack of community participation in forest management. You remember that? But he was talking of collaborative forest management, which has been around for some years. You get it? So I want you to move into the second discussion so that we can be able to say where is the problem. If you are saying the act is okay, the forest policy is okay, why are all the forests disappearing in the district? If you travel from here going to Hoima, you will see a lot of burnt forests, isn't it? So this is the time when I would want us to go into that discussion, and don't fear them now. They are here. Tell them directly. I want to invite the person who is going to chair the next session, and I also want to that I'm not going to spare him.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Lokneta asked me to actually give a highlight on how the West, because the forest officer highlighted on them as an issue in Bulisa. I think NEMA would be the best people to handle this. But for our case, we are monitoring. We are basically doing the monitoring issue, and we are very keen on that. And basically, with the little funds that we have in the district, we've done some studies on the wetlands that have been affected, and basically that's what we are doing. So you realize that there are a lot of constraints in capacity, in funding. So basically those are the issues that are down there. If there is anybody who has any issue on that and an addition on that, I think it will come up in the discussions. I don't want to waste a lot of your time. I think the floor is yours.
The district forest officer, Bulisa, you said you identified that in Bulisa the temperatures go even beyond 40 degrees. And you have identified that Bulisa is lacking trees and it is losing trees in the conserved forest reserves. What have you done as the district forest officer to see that you rejuvenate the natural environment in Bulisa? I see that you are saying that the exotic trees cannot do better in Bulisa. Now we are doing conservation, we are going conservation the way forward. We have tree species which can do better in Bulisa, which are natural in Bulisa. Like I saw acacia can do better and Albizia tree species. Why don't you go into breeding these tree species and you donate them to the communities to plant them freely to rejuvenate our natural forests? I think that will help reduce the temperatures and the environment regain its status. Recent projects which we are getting, like the Nilo Density Reforestation project, you are still encouraging planting pine, yet you are reforestating, meaning that the forest exists, but you are reforestating to bring it back. Still you are encouraging pine tree species. My question is, are we selling our country to the Western world? Because we have natural tree species which can compete with pine in terms of growth. For example, myopsis can compete with pine and mature at the same age.
Yeah, thank you, young man, for that. I think I would like to restrict ourselves to the questions.
The first one is a question to Mr. Tom. You talked about the challenges of sustainable management by the university, but I notice you have very many challenges compared to opportunities. How do you plan to solve the challenges? Then the second one is an inquiry to John Makumba. I appreciate the sport hunting activity, but however I want to inquire if you allow the wildlife to graze with the domestic. I don't know if you first carried out research to see that it's okay in terms of disease transmission. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Maybe you would have 2 more.
My name is Chobe Oscar, the president of the Private Students Association. And my questions are a bit political, and they are going to Honorable John Kiyaga. What has interested me a lot is that he's the presidential advisor on the environmental affairs. Now, rumor has it that the government is behind clearing of the biodiversity, normally the forests, in the fear that because when it was taking power, it started with the bush. Therefore, it thinks that also people will use the bush to capture power. Next question. Now, there is what we call personal interest, that even the government itself wants the bush cleared, also another point. For example, you can see Mavira here. The president waked up one day and said, I want to plant sugarcane. And the Ugandan said, no, but the forest said, me, I want to plant sugarcane. Actually, I've sold it to who? To Meta. Did you hear that story? Yeah. Yet we have the best policy, which can be used to conserve and protect our wildlife. So that's a problem. So, Honorable John Kiyaga, I want you to tell me how we can break that barrier which the government has in its personal interest towards our beloved biodiversity. The second question is that NEMA also, as NEMA, it has a problem. That one day the president himself, I quoted him saying, actually, with my own ears, he said, now I have got Jennifer Musi for Kampala. And Kampala is starting to be cleaned up. Therefore, I'm planning and I'm looking forward to get another leader for NEMA. That means NEMA has a problem. Yeah. So how can we solve NEMA? Thank you very much.
Yeah. I've been very much pleased with the presentations, but I've remained the saddest person in this room. Why? My area of interest has not been represented. That's understanding the animals themselves. I have so many professional documentaries, satellite captured and documented, of trying to understand. That's why you see, beginning to understand the animals themselves, you feel them. That's why some people live with lions and tigers in their homes. Okay? And if we put that department or section into what we are doing, perhaps that could save so many animals from being killed and so on. Okay? So I'm requesting for that to appear in what you are presenting. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
On the issue of revegetative evolution. One, well, much as I said that most of the exotic tree species are not doing well in Rhodesia, there are those that we have locally identified among the exotic ones that we are promoting in this area. For example, Neem is doing well. Senna, Smith is doing well. Bruvelia is also doing well. But now the concern is, are people really interested in only those? We need the diversity also. So we should have more exotic trees. And at the same time, we're also doing something on propagation of the locally available ones. We have patterned there is a number of civil society organizations and NGOs, and they're already doing something on forestry, for example. Uganda Wildlife Society is with us there, and I think in the next phase of intervention, tree planting is one of the issues to be handled. Then we have a program with, this program is coordinated by NFA. It's called the National Community Tree Planting Program, where NFA raises seedlings for communities. And this has been a beneficiary, but of course, raising seedlings for the whole of this country is not easy. It would be good, like, to encourage the communities themselves to establish their own nurseries, which you have done. So on top of getting support from NFA, we're also encouraging the local communities to establish tree nurseries either for commercial purposes or for the direct, for their direct consumption.
Okay, I'll talk about the issue of grazing, whether wildlife can mix up with domesticated animals, livestock. But just before that, I just wanted to comment on one issue that Dr. Bakuneta mentioned about conversation when he talked about the chimpanzee. Basically, conversation. The Uganda Wildlife Authority, actually, the Wildlife Act does not provide for conversation. And the reason being the fact that wildlife is all over Uganda. And if you go into the definition of wildlife, who can actually try? Basically, all animals that are not domesticated and are living in their natural environment, outside, whether outside or inside protected areas, are wildlife. Now, what are we referring to here? Those birds that fly over your head, the moles that dig under the ground, all that is wildlife. Now, take an example of Kibimba rice. Assuming that you're going to compensate those people who are in Kibimba, assuming that you go to the village and compensate all that is being eaten by birds, rats, and everything, tell me how much is the country going to spend on a compensation? So compensation is not, let me say, a viable project that governments can actually afford. But what we are doing is currently looking at situations in terms of human life. What can we do for human life? We cannot even compensate human. It's very impossible. Because when someone dies, you cannot, compensate that life. It's a gone case. So the best is to see if someone is injured, what do we do? If someone dies, what do we do? Possibly we contribute to burial expenses and then pick up the siblings so that we can be able to give them projects that are going to sustain them due to the loss of their dear ones. Now, in terms of grazing, the law, the Wildlife Act, does not allow grazing within protected areas. It's very illegal. However, because people have begun occupying wildlife habitats outside protected areas, I think you need to mark that. People are occupying wildlife habitats outside protected areas. We have found it inevitable to make sure that wildlife lives together with people. And in order for us to do that, we have put in these programs like spot hunting, so that then we can work with the veterinary doctors, to ensure that we minimize disease spread. So that's why you find that around the ranges of Lake Mburo, we allow wildlife to be together with domesticated animals, so that wildlife can survive, and the domesticated animals can also survive in the same environment. If you go to Kenya, the Maasais are grazing together with wildlife. That's the same thing in Ngorongoro Crater in Tanzania. So that is meant to ensure that wildlife survives. At the same time, we have livestock being grazed in those areas that originally were wildlife habitats. Thank you. I hope I've answered it.
For the purpose of our management in Uganda, we look at wildlife in terms of animals. But when the plan somebody was talking about that we have to study this wildlife, we have to study these animals. Or, wildlife is broader than that. If you include even plant genetic resources that are not domesticated, they are what? They are biological copy, they are living things. So as long as they are not domesticated, they are still from part of what? Wildlife. So it's too a broad concept. If you bring an element of compensations, then you are going to compensate even somewhere when the weeds invades what? It's farm, because those are what? Unwanted plants, they are not domesticated, they are wildlife. Okay. So it becomes difficult.
Well, this is not intentional that we are actually promoting pine or eucalyptus. But as I already mentioned, that as you've seen, during between Idamin and the NRM, there was a gap in that there were no planting, replacement of plantations which are there, and it created a gap. So NFA, for example, has now no revenue base because of that gap. And so if we have to make a bridge, to bridge that gap, they need to plant so many trees, some which actually are fast growing, so that we don't make a gap and there is more encroachment on the existing natural forests. So one of these was to give out land to commercial investors to plant species which can grow fast. First of all, there was a species site matching, which indicated the type of species to be planted. And some of those species, as we've said, some of them are indigenous species. But as these are commercial investors, they are business people. So they have to look for species which they think they can make, they are marketable, and they'll be able to sell and get put at any other business person. And also, when you look at pine or eucalyptus, these are species actually which can almost grow almost in any ecological area of Uganda. So it took like more promoting itself than any other species. But in some of these reserves, for example, in our own planting of NFA, we are planting Myzopsis and any other indigenous species. But normally this businessman, it's very difficult for this to go plant pines, plant prunus, plant mahogany. It's not easy. For a lady who say, how do we intend to overcome challenges which are more than opportunities? I think this is that's why we are here to make me to see the way forward together. But of course, as an institution, we have strategies for overcoming these challenges. Some of which maybe there is another discussion as the strategies we are making. But most of these actually rely around the facilitation to implement the policies and laws. But even if these challenges look to be many, if we can go to our opportunities and we make say implement our opportunities, then we will be able to challenge this to overcome this challenge which we think there are many. And of course, we have so many opportunities, I have to say, we have donors, we have loans, we have what, but implementing them is difficult majorly because of the financing. And we have so many, we are writing so many projects, so many work, and donors are still looking at them. So you can get some of your views and the advice from me.
Thank you, Tom.
Basically, Ugandans, I think, let's not assume that someone has more rights and obligations than we have. We all have obligations. And at all levels, people make mistakes, technical and political. But sometimes we have to look at, for example, the thing of Parliament. I remember at that time I was still there, and I was part of the committee that overflew, that we went with Janet, and we said no. And the civil society and the academia, but of course there were those who also said yes. But at the end of the day, we all won. I think the president had also been given some information which was not appropriate, but we stood our ground and everybody participated. Yes, it was a problem, And I remember his last statement said, okay, I will resurrect it again. But you know, people were ready. So what I want to encourage Uganda is, like now, we remember the issue of Kafera, 2009-10, we passed the budget, and after a certain gauge, Parliament was supposed to bring exceptions, and we tasked NEMA and the Ministry of Water and Environment. NEMA did its work, and the ministry, the Honorable Mutagamba, my sister, refused to table those exceptions because she had personal interest, I will say, with these, I don't know, investors and what. So we normally get challenges, but we should be able to know that at every level, anybody can make a mistake, but let's stand out. Even if it's your father, it's your president, and we say, no, I think here this is not correct, and that this is the only way to move forward, because this country belongs to us. There are no specialized people in one place and the other. We are all have the same obligations and commitments which we must fulfill to our population.
Yeah, and I think we should really put the trust in our parliament. Actually, this is the seventh parliament. It's a very proactive parliament, and basically what the task we have here is that we put into policy making and things like that. Yes, I think we have another session to ask questions, but we are here to have our inputs into this, and our repertoire. I think I have not seen the repertoire. Yes, I would love that every idea and every issue is really captured.
It is my pleasure to have you here, but during our time, we suffered. We didn't have a forum like this one. Although, like he put it, okay, we are going, but we need people who are very courageous who will replace us. The situation is worsening because human numbers are on increase and biodiversity is on a decrease. Love it or not, these are my recommendations as a person, but I feel pain. I don't know where to leave my children when I go. So it is you who should stand up and say no. Oh, this is the best alternative. One, as a recommendation, I wish to suggest. But briefly, I've been in conservation for the last 34 years. That is why I made that statement. So, I personally recommend that if you all agree, we go by this. Let us have one line ministry of natural resources to govern biodiversity properly without any division.
Currently, these people who are killing elephants, do you think they kill them with pangas? No, they go with guns, and more sophisticated guns than what we are carrying. So in order to protect that wildlife, we also do what? We also carry the guns. And so the guns are not for killing people, the guns are for protecting wildlife. But in that protection, you are also facing what? You're facing fire. Assuming a poacher shoots towards you, what will you do?
To throw a stone.
You run away. So what if you run away? What will the wildlife then do? What happens to wildlife? It will grow. So we definitely don't have that policy. But in times of danger where there is need for self-defense, the first target is the leg. We must disable you first. But you know, these people will ambush you. They will not tell you we are going to shoot you. As you are patrolling, they will just shoot and you'll also have to defend yourself. So, my colleagues, don't go and preach that gospel that wildlife is there to kill. No, we are there to protect the lives of the people and the lives of the wildlife. And whenever we arrest people, we take them to police for prosecution. And usually the first thing we do is to first sensitize. If it is your first offense, we release you after sensitization. But most times, we take to court whenever we see that we have arrested a person the second time, the third time, and the fourth time. That's when we take to court. Is that okay? I hope I've covered all the questions.
We have this Red Plus program, which is trying to sensitize the people on how they can benefit. We also have payment for ecosystem services, which we think it has that linkage. I would want Professor Gaya to help us to tell us how good, from the existing information, we think that we can encourage the local people to stop cutting these trees and allow them to grow because of the carbon financing. And Tom should help us to know where these programs are operating, whether actually they are working, because I know that that is happening. Now, I want to quickly have a question with UA. There is more wildlife outside protected areas than inside. But UA has done very well on the wildlife inside. You are not doing very well on the outside. Can we work out a mechanism to ensure that the wildlife which is in the wetlands near my place, the wildlife near somebody's farm, we can be able to get those bushbacks, and I tame them and I breed them, so that when you find them, me having 5 bushbacks, you don't arrest me. That is something that I would want us to see us working out as a group.
Is my partner. As we well know, that we have got a number of opportunities in the management of the environment and resources. There is yet to be the operationalization of the tree fund. That is yet to constitute the steering committee. And we shall see the issue of concerning with the money issues. We shall address that. Now, on the issue of the management plan, I refer back to my gentleman here. When you go back on the background of National Authority, its mandate is to protect the central forest reserves, and the forests outside protected areas, they are majorly entirely based on community, or they are communally owned. Now, when you advise those people before you come up with a management plan, there's need for registration. Most of the community landowners, they're not willing to register their properties with the fee of the government to pay for their land. So, but however, there has been a project under FAO that has helped so much in educating. That has been actually implemented in northern Uganda. We have seen some people are now interested. We have learned actually the biggest percentage is communally owned, and people on board, we have started registering those people.
The ban that was put on leasing of Central Forest Reserve land to private tree farmers. Yeah, to me, it was more of an institutional problem, whereby people use their authority or power to acquire that land. And it is in my view that apparently many people are really dying to have this land to establish plantations. But to me, it's not that because of the few individuals who faulted the criteria at the time that it should deny other investors to acquire that land. So it's high time we rose up as civil societies in the interest of tree planting, and we advocated for the lift of this ban, because people are really burning, they want to plant, but they cannot access this land. So I want you to take on that, my brother from NFA, and the rest can contribute to the same. Thank you.
The other one is Peter. I'm from Mount Elgon area. Yes. I just want to give recommendations. One recommendation in terms of conservation of the forests and wetlands. OWA should be able to cultivate very good relations with the communities around. 2, if you don't have an information management strategy already, then design one. That strategy will inform you as to who has gone into the back river, including those big brothers who stay in shelter. Yes. In your strategy, you should have a component whistleblowing, so that, and your whistleblowers should not be known, because the reporters can easily The third one, I don't agree with the statement that we don't have resources in the plan. The problem is prioritization. And I agree with the one that we need to engage our policymakers and our technical team, the implementers, to ensure that the resources are allocated to very serious sectors, agriculture, environment, conservation, health. In Uganda, everything is going amiss, and this is the 21st century. I'm very worried about these young people here. You are going to inherit a very terrible future. Now, for me who is working in the development world, if you want to become rich in a year, you grow cereals. And if you want to be rich in 10 years, plant a forest. Yes, and I've told the young people, because the way the degradation is going is very alarming. Now, in 10 years, if you can harvest the timber from only one tree, you can earn no more than $1 million shillings. So if you planted 100 trees, so I don't want young men to tell us in 10 years' time that they are poor. Really, this is serious. So then, of course, if you want to be rich forever, you educate your children. Yeah. When your children are educated, you'll be okay. Now, we need to, this report, these reports we have from here, should be able to be sent to our email. At home, some of us would like to engage our political leaders at the different levels, LSC3, LSC5, and members of parliament. Because the information is already here from technical people. And tell them what they should do. Then finally, I think a comprehensive research will be carried out. Who is responsible? Where do powers in this country lie? Where are they? Is it within the presidency? Or within the ministers? Or where? Where is it? Today I don't know where the powers lie. Because the ministers are driving around in nice cars, but they don't work. We need to find out that, and I think the Wildlife Society should be able to initiate that kind of research. Where are the powers? Because if you go to any minister now, they will tell you, no, that one is like, they will give you cover story. But the powers must be elsewhere. Where is it? Thank you very much.
Thank you for those wonderful points, and I think that's the way.
To one travel company. Mine is to appreciate, if you can allow me, Mr. Moderator. Very briefly. I really want to appreciate the organizer, the Wildlife Society, and we are honored to have all the people around, and we are also honored to be invited for this particular meeting. Why I want to appreciate more is that this organization, and the organization has not only considered the groups of my age, but has considered the people who matter. We are in the forestry department here, and we have a local saying in my local vernacular, okay, for those who can answer it, it's strengthening what? The forest, and I'm so happy about that one, because we know that we can have whom to hand over, particularly when we are addressing the issue of conservation. That's most important. Without conservation, I won't survive, and so many segments will not survive. I'm so happy these days that you can even get a call. I happen to be a board member in the Wildlife Education Center, which is formerly the zoo in Entebbe. And you get calls now, because we talk about it, whether we are in the churches or any gathering, at a beer party or something. And you get a call that a python is somewhere, or there's a big snake somewhere, because someone happened to know that you are within the tourism sector, and then they call you. I love that one. And a call coming from a taxi driver. That's the concern. That's the concern that we are now heading for. That's what I'm saying. Of course, what I do, I just call my acting ED in Entebbe, and we make arrangements. But again, we have to address, why are we having these reptiles moving around. They don't have anywhere because they find them in people's rooms. I mean, where the chickens are, of course, have engulfed a few of them. But why? Because we have encouraged it. It goes back to environment. You know, doctor has mentioned about it, and many people have talked about this one. So, for goodness sake, I'll go back to Honorable, that much as he has been an advisor for only a couple of months. We shall still make the appeal, and I will join my colleague from Bambale, that we all get together and we continue to help this young generation. Otherwise, we shall not have anybody to hand over. Because the concern is here, the Wildlife Society has shown it, and all of us, I'm sure these people will be listening. I want once again to appreciate that we have been invited and we want to be invited more. Because we have
the calendar of the ministers, the cabinet ministers and ministers, realize that we don't have any Ministry of Forestry. And we have Ministry of Water, whereby forestry produces water. Rain comes from forests and lakes. And then how can you have a Ministry of Water, or a Ministry of Forestry? So we were looking for the means they are named, not what it doesn't force. Because we want to have a Ministry of Forestry, we manage it, which can produce, can help what? Okay? Yes. It's very big, which cares for water and the environment. Than having this of water when it's just money. So we want this thing to be in position so we can have at least, because first come out of biodiversity. Unless it's considered very well, we shall keep on talking and
Now that the experts are here, if I go without asking this question. Now, under this greening, they are giving large tracts of land, especially here in Africa, in Uganda in particular, to people under RED and PACE programs, to huge multinational companies at the expense of the local people. How about me, my father, who can do a half an acre? How about a village where each one can put 100 trees and they also have 1,000 trees? So the technical people who are here, that's an issue which came in Rio, but as a country we have not found a solution for it.
Good. I think most of the questions were all around awareness, and I agree with you, we need to engage that. We need to be very critical about certain factors. Which are these driving factors? For example, it's a poverty. I think there's a poverty problem in Uganda that is still biting hard and forcing our community to depend on natural resources. I think if we get a way of improving their
politician. I suppose you watched the screening of Honorable who in East Mali, who was throwing careers when we were trying to mark boundaries. For the communities, they were willing to see the boundaries there, but the politician, because he promised communities land, he comes back and says, to hell with your boundaries. Because he knows the moment we mark a boundary like this, he will have lost forever. You see that? So it's not actually the communities. We need to start with the politicians and then come down. So you can imagine how that politician behaved in front of the whole world, that he is not in favor of conservation. And so, if he is not in favor of conservation, what about the local person who is down there? What do you expect of that person? So let's start on the top, and I think the elites should help us. The professor is the one buying meat along Karuma Road. Instead of stopping the meat, he's actually the very one who is doing what? Now, exactly promoting. Now, he's doing research. No way. If we get the professor buying wild meat and enjoying it, and not one day, he comes again, he goes to Guru, he buys, he comes back, he buys, he goes back, he buys. So, you see where the problem is? It's not the local man, but it's the person who is buying this meat. Because if he doesn't buy, this person will never go back to the bush to kill more wildlife. So I think we need to work with this elite side. You're very right. We need to do something about that. And for sure we have started. That's why we have programs in ranches of Lake Mburu We have programs in Amudat, Kaisotonya, Karenga, we have Lolim. So even in Kafu, these areas of Nakasongola, Nakaseke, we already have programs out there so that we can protect all that wildlife that's outside. However, our major problem is the fact that every Ugandan is actually producing and producing. And so the population is vast every day, and we need space. The country is not enlarging, but the population is increasing. So that's a big challenge that we are going to live with, and I think we need to handle it together. So we need to focus elsewhere, away from natural resources, so that we can be able to meet our targets. And one of the ways we are going to do that as a country is to industrialize the country, just like the president has been advocating for industries. Because when we get industries, we shall educate our children and pull them away from those villages where we have natural resources that we need to protect. So creating ministries, let's think about it again. We're creating a ministry for tourism, stop poaching. We're creating a ministry for forestry, stop the encroachment. I think let's not go into areas that don't matter. For me, I think wherever I am as the wildlife, for instance, we were recently in trade, okay? But we were shaking the country. You were even hearing, wildlife is flourishing. Actually, the time we got more wildlife population is increasing is when we were in trade. Because what is most important is, do we have the capacity to manage? Do we have the resources? If the resources are there, even if you are in gender and what and your environment, you will do it. Yes, but it is also good that we are in one institution to coordinate. But what is most important is the capacity to do what? The capacity to manage the resources. I think I'll stop there.
Now, this concept came here. My elite institution, I must say, they never did enough to educate people about carbon financing to the extent that people went there with their poverty. You have given told your people around Mbendedera, the prior thing, you have given a certain amount of money, and now you are supposed to plant this crop. 3 crops is your crop, but you're supposed to harvest after certain years. Now maybe after 22 years for mine, but the initial one, no, but it's your crop, you're not supposed to harvest. Now people rushed, initial people. When they rushed, they signed an agreement, the land is under the care, you're not supposed to cultivate, a few other crops, and then that is the only piece of land. And the money, you give a poor man very good money. Before he knows he will marry another wife, he's going to begin eating fish every day. Yet he used to eat only during independence or this. So the lifestyle changes. So my advice is, we have not evaluated this project that has been, but my advice is they must reform. People must be first educated about what, and then if they are going, they should not emphasize more on timber commercial crops. Let them talk about fruit trees, multi-purpose, where somebody can be able to put his land to that year, but is able to get somewhat benefit out of it. In fact, Costa Rica and Brazil, their carbon financing is based on fruit trees, multi-purpose one, rather than timber tree which we are emphasizing. Again, maybe to touch on what you said about green hidden giant. Now, if you have seen that logic, if you look at, for example, the solar, they are more everywhere, and they come and lease land from them, and the land is given for 49 years or so. Indirect, that's really up to what they are coming. So it all comes to our policy, the issue that before you bring this investor, there must be still a time that if you are to take export money back, then like in Ethiopia is very funny. My friend, the name for what? Investor. Because we released it for 49 years. And then yet we're producing one. So that is the concept of land green land. We must really think, focus, and have general debate about it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. I think this interaction would go on and go on. And thank you so much for all your contributions from John, Moses, and Abia. I thank you so much for all your presentations, and I thank management for having given me this opportunity to chair this session. And at this point in time, I think back to management.
Coming to attend this public dialogue, I believe each and everybody is going out with something to deliver. As the saying goes, he who shares the table with an elder shares knowledge. So we are going out with knowledge. But I have a few points I have cited out in the presentations to share with you. To the youths, all the people have presented, they have said the future of Uganda belongs to us now, meaning that they are handing over to us almost. But my question is, are you prepared to move Uganda forward in this, amidst the challenge of climate change? My answer is, go back and plant a tree, which is a natural species in nature, as the maker did it in those days. My other issue was, somebody talked about the Bible mandating us as humans to conserve our environment, which we are not doing. So we should take on the biblical roles. Most of us are believers to protect our natural resources for the future generations. The professor said natural resources use are the same for us and even our ancestors. What do we have to do? We have to look at sustainable management. Let us manage natural resources such that we can use them and the future generation also use them. The professor still said that communication and awareness are very important. Through this communication is we get awareness. But you don't need to sit with the awareness we have put in. We need to go back and educate others such that they also get aware and they learn how to promote conservation. Somebody from us said policies are good in Uganda, but implementation is poor. As we understand the policies, we should initiate the implementation such that the good implementation goes on for other generations. Because as the elites, we saw ourselves throwing bottles through the vehicle windows. We saw ourselves cutting down trees and not replacing them. So we should walk the talk. Instead of blaming the government and blaming other people. The government is fine, they have set up policies. But if we don't implement the policies ourselves, then the government will not implement them because we are the majority. Otherwise, thank you very much for participating in this public dialogue. We encourage you to come for another one if organized, such that we get knowledge and promote awareness.
Has someone? Hey. Yes. Fine. How are you? Yes. For coming. Yeah, thank you for giving me. I'm sorry about the voice. Yes.
With the oil.